The new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook Wild Game Recipes for the Grill, Smoker, Campfire, and Camp Stove is out on April 24th and is available for pre-order now. Here is your book for everything that's best cooked or eaten outside. From grilling to open fire cooking to Dutch ovens to smokers to barbecue to backpacking meals to how to pull off the perfect fish fry, with pit stops along the way for lessons about Ice Age cooking methods and the best 5 ways to construct a cooking fire you can be proud of. And of course, we're focusing on wild game and fish here with over 100 recipes, including stuffed venison burgers 3 ways, wild duck with ahi verde sauce, a jerky made with cola, a gin and tonic made with fire-charred lemons, and grilled frog legs made with a sticky sweet sauce. This ain't your normal cookbook, so be prepared to be surprised. Pre-order your copy now. For more info, visit themeateater.com.
Hey, this is Tyler Jones, and you're listening to the Element Podcast. What's going on, my woods people? It's going great here in Texas as we have been catching state records and prepping for our Gila hunt and some of our out-of-state deer hunts. But as we've been doing that, the thing that is just sneaking into my mind daily, a little more every day, it's something that I'm maybe most excited about, because the opportunity to hunt a whole bunch of days and chase the most challenging big game we have, the opportunity to chase year in and year out usually, and that thing is Texas public land whitetails. So, KC, that's what today is all about. But first, you got a pretty awesome item in the mail yesterday.
Oh, hot dog, I did.
Was it a hot dog?
It kind of is like a big fat, like a Chicago hot dog.
Dang.
Have you ever had a Chicago hot dog?
I haven't.
Like, I've never eaten one in Chicago, but like with the pickle and the pepper and all that
the
on
stuff
it. Oh,
on
it is good.
Is
it's
it?
got like a vinegar on it too. It's good.
Kaylee was in Chicago a couple days ago.
Really?
Yeah.
Come on, Kales. Hey, she's missing a big piece of trim off her car.
Yeah, it's a pretty good American-made car there.
Anyways, my mail day was cool. I got a Climate KSB 20-degree down bag, which is supposed to be one of the baddest little machines out there these days. And
I'm jelly.
It looks pretty cool. I haven't actually got in it yet because I'm pretty sweaty. But it looks nice, man.
It's already dirty. It's looking
black,
like it's used.
So, like, black attracts heat, right?
And dirt.
And dirt, yes.
Yeah.
Tyler rolled around in the sand for me. But so I got this. The Climate sent me this. You got what? You got a mail day too, right?
Yeah, Climate sent me a Static V sleeping pad.
Nice.
Which I'm really excited about, because I laid on it on my bed yesterday, which may not be the best test, but it feels like it's going to hold me off the ground. So
That's
I'm
good.
excited
Off
about
the ground is
that.
where you want to be.
Yeah. But those things are in preparation for another piece of mail that you received yesterday.
Oh, man, I did. I received
Another hot dog.
Another hot dog. It's a flat dog.
Yeah, it was.
It was a New Mexico elk tag. It's real. It's official. Like, straight
real.
up, the tag reads, any elk, Unit 16B, Gila. Like, it's the thing. Like, there's no doubt left in my mind that I'm going on this hunt.
Even the 380s, are they considered any elk? Are they under that?
Yeah.
400s?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it also means I can shoot a cow. So, you know.
Yeah, that's good.
You want to, like, if we really want to be countercultural, just go to the Gila and shoot a cow.
How mad would some people get?
Oh, my gosh.
You put in for that,
Those are the mothers of the giant bulls. What are you doing?
Yeah. Take that, you cow.
QEM, quality elk management. So prep for that. That tag is actually really cool because in Colorado there's this real gray area, like confusing thing with the tag where it's a carcass tag, but then like when you separate the antlers and the meat, like you don't really know where to put the tag and all that. And I mean, we grew up just putting tags on antlers. It's just kind of what you do. And it makes sense.
Tape.
Yeah, exactly. But there's only one tag, and it is just this piece of cellophane stuff or whatever. For New Mexico, they send you your hunting license, a carcass tag and a antler tag.
How about that?
And they're all sticky. So you notch the antler tag, pull it off like Midwestern style, stick it on the antlers, and then you do the same thing with the carcass tag, put it through the little tarsal tendon area right there.
Nice. It's
so
nice that they don't expect you to carry a piece of wire or a zip tie or something like that.
I know, man. Goodness gracious. And it's nice that they're like, hey, just to avoid any confusion, we're just going to give you two things, and you don't have to worry about transitioning tags from one thing to another or anything, you know? So,
yeah. Well thought out, New Mexico.
Man, way to go, guys.
What I liked about that tag is it had that, that elk on it that was bugling.
That was cool.
It was moving.
And also had a German thing behind it. I put in the little Jiffy thing on Instagram, I just typed in elk just to see what would come up. And there was one other elk.
It's like a red deer.
Yeah, and then this one came up as a red deer, and it said Hoskendackin and behind it or something.
I thought it said Jägermeister.
I don't know what it said, but it was pretty funny, so I left it on there. And then my wife looked at it and said, "There's a number on here. You sure you might need to delete that?" I'm like, Cassie, it's okay. Don't worry about it.
This thing is mine.
Yeah, ain't nobody gonna go try to jack my tag.
This is mine.
Yeah, but yeah,
be gone in 24 hours anyway. So
exactly.
Yeah.
That's a good thing about Insta stories,
dude. It's real. It's real, and the excitement is real. I can't imagine. Like, never knew that I'd be so excited about somebody else's tag, but like I am. But because I guess I don't know. Maybe because it's my tag. I don't know if you might not have felt this way. So if that's the case, it's maybe because it's not my tag. But I've been thinking a lot about deer lately, and so
I have too. A lot.
Yeah.
Like.
Well, especially since I put in about almost $700 for a deer tag.
Goodness gracious, man. That's like, anyways, that's ridiculous.
A little too much, probably. But I did it because I've been putting in for 5 years for this thing. So, but yeah, that really got me thinking too. And so I'm going to have like quite a few tags this year, I think, as opposed to at least in relation to other years. And I have to like definitely think a lot about how I'm going to manage my season. And it's going to be a lot of hunting, which is exciting. It's also a little bit nerve-wracking because if like I normally am pretty broke during hunting season, and now I'm going to be hunting even more. So it's like, oh, how do I do this without, making everybody mad in my family? So that's definitely something I have to think about going forward. And in that equation is something that, I don't know why, but like I may be most excited about hunting Texas public land this year, just because. And that sounds so weird, but like I'm just like, it's one of those things that like I feel like that if I don't shoot a decent buck in Iowa or Kansas on public or private, whatever, either way, that like I feel like if I don't shoot one this year, that's like a pretty big failure. But like. This will be year 3 basically that I've been hunting Texas pubs and haven't shot one. And granted, it is a little bit of a failure feeling, but like, it's also like, I just it's an expected kind of thing. It's like I more expect that it's going to be hard enough that it's not going to happen every year than I do that it's going to happen every year, you know?
Yeah.
I may not be explaining this well.
No,
but
yeah, I got you. I mean, it's kind of like you're supposed to win homecoming, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what it's like. It's like, okay, we ain't won homecoming for 3 years.
Yeah.
And last year, I guess I had a tie. I shot a spike, and people were upset about that. So,
they were.
But I feel like I'm kind of right there with you. All my hunts I am excited about, but I feel like the Texas public thing is just a touch different.
It's so tough.
It's tough.
I don't want to say it a bunch because everybody thinks their hunting's tough, right?
Yeah, sure.
But I mean, I've hunted several states in different places, and I can see guys on the media and stuff like that, and I just know that the class of deer is different, the body size, the pressure is different, and so like there's just a lot of factors, man, that play into these deer being very tough to hunt.
Yep, I've been to out of state hunting locations a couple times, and I will tell you that I have seen double-digit buck numbers in some states, and Texas is not one of them on public land. I've never seen more than 10 bucks in a full day's hunt. It's just a different animal, and I don't know. I feel like, and maybe I have gone so far down this road that I I'm not working hard enough to have success because I just kind of go out expecting not to see much. And maybe I need to like have that fire, that fuel a little bit more to say, you know what, like I don't need to just accept that and just hope that I luck into one.
Well, I agree. But I think that also expectations can really mess you up.
Yeah.
For me, at least. You're a more positive guy than me. So, like, for you, you're just like, I'm just going to go back and I'm going to kill him next time. You know? And for me, if my expectations are kind of high and I hunt 3 days in a row and don't see anything, I'm like, I hate this. What am I doing with my life? I'm wasting my time. I should be editing podcasts and stuff.
I need a cheeseburger.
I need a cheeseburger and some cookies. And so, like, I just set myself up with if I don't have the right expectations.
A couple of weeks ago, we had Jared Scheffler on the podcast, and that was one of the big things I took away from his podcast or with his interview is that he doesn't use trail cams and doesn't do much preseason scouting because he doesn't want to set those expectations too high. He wants to go into a place and be excited with what he sees and be happy with what the outcome is. And
we've kind of discussed that theory a little bit. As far as like trail cameras with the lack of trail cameras leaving mystique to like a place, I mean, what's awesome is that in your mind, even here in Texas, like there could be like a booner on your property if you don't run trail cameras. But if you do and you run for a whole year and the biggest thing you see is about 132-inch 10-point twice, then you're like, and you saw that he gets shot on Facebook, then you're like, there ain't nothing out there,
Yeah, exactly. So, but at the same time, hunting, you can't eat mystique. You know what I mean? And you can't put a tag on mystique. So if you are constantly like just waiting on a deer that doesn't exist, then you're wasting a bunch of time.
Yeah.
So it's like you got to weigh out the benefit versus reward of doing stuff like that.
For sure, man. So this podcast, we feel like we've been talking, obviously the podcast runs as like a mirror to our lives. You know what I mean? Like, so what we're excited about, what we're doing, what we're digging, what we're thinking about is usually what this podcast looks like week to week. And we feel like that we may have not done justice to the amount of thinking and excitement that we have towards Texas public lands in the last several weeks because of this tag that you drew. It's a once-in-a-lifetime tag. And so we wanted to just kind of bring light into that and let people in on our plan, the issues that we've seen on Texas like in the last few years and the reason we haven't been successful, or I haven't, and the reason that you ended up shooting, kind of having to pull the trigger on a spike last minute to get some meat, which I'm thankful for because I've made several stews and I still have a backstrap.
I feel as if your half of the spike went further than mine.
I haven't eaten very much of it. I mean, I've made several stews, but like we haven't just hammered it. We've been eating some fish and stuff like that. So I've definitely been able to do a little bit of fishing this year and stuff like that. So that's been good. But
that's good.
Anyway, so our season didn't quite go like we had thought it might last year. And with all the scouting we did, we were like, oh yeah, we're good. We're going to, kill or whatever. And
isn't that such a motif amongst most hunters though? Like how many people have the season they dream about? It doesn't happen very often. No. This is a pretty relatable thing to most people, I would think. And it's, something that happens to me almost every year.
Yeah. our friend, just on a local level, Cody Beaver, that's been on the podcast before. Yeah. Like the last couple of years, his season hasn't gone like he wanted it to, due to, and this is not even like something that's like, I'm hunting and man, he was at 30 and he was behind a bush. This is like, I'm flooded out. Yeah. You know what I mean? You can't even control that at all. And so, dude. It's definitely, and we don't want to sound too negative going forward here for a second because
it's positive season right now.
We're excited and we think that things are going to happen. So we're going to lay all the excitement and the plans out for you. But to set that up, what we want to do right here is talk about a few of the issues that we've seen that have been self-imposed and maybe some issues that we see that we think could be changed maybe on a department level as well, but we obviously don't have the expertise that biologists and things have. So,
and also just on a social level too, like something that as hunters we all should probably work on and do a better job of as well.
For sure, man, for sure. Well, the first thing I can think of, should we start blaming ourselves or blaming the department first?
Let's blame the department first.
Okay, good idea. I'm there. So
we'll blame the department for all of our
there's
mishaps.
just some like whack rules on some of these public lands that make it tough, man.
There is, man, and I don't understand it all, and a lot of this stuff is just rules that were written at one point in time to avoid certain problems that may or may not be even a problem that is something that we encounter nowadays. It's the one that always comes to mind for me is like the boundary rule.
Yes.
Like you can't be, you got to be, what's the distance? Is it 50 yards?
I think.
It's like, really 50 yards from a boundary fence? Like, as far as I understand, like when I'm on my private land, if it's on my land, it's on my land, right? Like it's kind of verbatim. And kind of with the whole keep it public like idea, like if it's public land, it's taxpayer land, then you should be able to utilize all of it, not 14,000 acres minus the perimeter boundary by 50 yards squared or whatever, whatever that amount of land you're losing is right there.
Right.
And I mean, quite honestly, if you don't have big public parcels, you're going to be hunting a lot of deer that are going on and off of private land often. And those deer actually might even be feeding mostly on private land because that's where food is a lot of times. I mean, I know there's a ton of browse, especially if, it's decent habitat or whatever, but a lot of this that we hunt's marginal habitat, and those deer are going on and off private, public every day. Mm-hmm. And it's pretty problematic.
Well, deer are a creature of edge, right?
Yeah.
And a fence line is an edge almost always. You know what I mean? Like, even when a fence has been put in the middle of the woods, usually they have to clear a line of trees. You know what I mean? So it makes an edge of some sorts. And so, like, if you can't be... I mean, what's weird is that, like, you can set up 50 yards from the edge, right? And if you have confidence, can't you shoot to the edge of the fence? So what's the difference?
I don't know.
I mean, like the only thing that I see is that it eliminates the temptation for those to shoot deer on private from public.
Yeah.
If you're sitting on the fence line, right?
Yeah.
But that's what rules are for, right? Rules.
Yeah.
Like that's what the law is for. It's not what, like we don't go, hey, let me think of a good example here. You might have one, but
it's not like, hey, the speed limit is 70, so we're going to make sure that you can't go but 55.
Right.
Like put a governor on your car so you can't go over 55. That way you don't break the 70 mile an hour speed limit.
Exactly.
Like we don't do that.
It's like a double law, you know? It's kind of hideous, man. And in all honesty, like how many times, and this will probably be a motif that we see throughout these some of these rural issues, but like how many times have we been walking down a edge of a property and seen ground blinds and tree stands set up within 50 yards of a property line? You know what I mean? Like
exactly.
Guys aren't paying attention to it, and I don't think the game wardens care either because they probably think it's a stupid law.
Hey, that's the thing. It's like where do you draw the line of like what's being enforced and what's not? But then at the same time, like for us, we video record everything we do, or most everything we do, unless it's real bad we don't see any deer.
yeah.
But and you want to do everything by the book because you want to be a good example, and you also don't want to get in trouble.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So sometimes it feels like you're the only one following the rules.
I know.
And another thing on that is it seems like no one follows the, 72 hours stand rule.
Yep.
Like, I can go on a WMA here close to home and probably go find a stand that I saw 20 years ago that's still in the tree. That's still being used.
Yeah.
It's like chained up in there. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I understand what that rule's for. It's so that people don't claim spots real hard, But at the same time, it's like, man, if I like go in, a half mile or 2 miles, whatever it might be, and find a really good spot, I'm not going to go back in there 3 days later and pull that stand because it's like, oh, well, here we go. Like I better make sure I follow the rules here.
Yeah.
It's like, man, that's tough.
Dude, there's stands everywhere.
Yeah.
On public where we've been.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know anybody that's really following that. I mean, we're in and out with our stands because we are always moving somewhere else, and we don't have a ton of
running gun
stands.
Stuff.
So, but like, I just don't. There's not hardly. I mean, we met guys last year on some of the public properties that are like I've been hunting here all year. You know what I mean? And to me, that makes sense. Like, there are other states that we've hunted that on public. They're like, yeah, put your stand in there and take it out. Just make sure it's out at the end of the year, you know? And at the same time, if some guy is sitting in your stand when you come in that morning, he has the right to it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
how bad that would stink, but he has the right to it.
It stinks, but I mean, you shouldn't have left it, kind of thing. You know, I mean, you run that risk, and most guys are willing to take it. But that's another rule that's kind of funky to me that makes things kind of difficult. Is there anything else you can think of?
Well, just to kind of go on with that one a little bit, what's funny is, like, I know of one place where there's a ladder stand you can see from the road. It was stayed there all season. It's like, okay, Mr. G-Dub, like, I know that you've driven by this and seen that, so we know that this law isn't getting enforced or rule. Or okay, so this is kind of more of a life thing, but sometimes I don't quite understand the difference in laws and rules, and is it the same thing? And I might be just being facetious or stupid, or I don't know, but, like, my youth kids are talking about, like, it's the law, like, you can't film the softball game. And I'm like, is it really a law, or is it just a UIL rule? And I think they're getting confused on what stuff is, you know, and this is really broad, but I feel like that's a little bit dangerous as a society when you start, like, having a misconception of what's the law and what's the rule. You know what I mean? But anyways, that was way out there.
No, I totally get it, man. Yeah, I was thinking about that one the other day, actually, because we were watching a game. But dude. Another one that I can think of offhand is the antler restrictions rules that have definitely, like, some flaws, and we've talked about it before, so we won't talk about it much. But basically, if it's got a branched antler, it has to be 13 inches wide or wider.
If both are branched.
Right. Sorry. If it has both branched antlers. So if it doesn't have at least one unbranched antler, so one spike side, then it has to be over 13 inches wide, which is such a random thing. And, like, the guidelines in the booklet talk about, like, it's got to be to the ear tips. But, like, a 5 or 6 year old deer might have 16-inch ears. You know what I mean? So, like, there's that. And then, you know, if it's a wide 2-year-old, he might not have 13-inch ears. Who knows? But maybe that's what's, you know, the biologists consider that they're trying to eliminate, is being a 2-year-old being shot. I don't know. But the thing is, it's a very hard rule to follow. And we have several deer on camera that you just know are 4+ years old, you know, 4, 5, or 6, and they just don't make that. Like, there was one that you should have shot last year. Journey got sick, so I didn't get to go with you that morning. And if I'd have been in the tree, you'd have shot it on public last year. And if he had one big spike side, but if he had one little thing coming off of that, he wouldn't have been legal.
Yeah,
he was
certainly
like
not
8
legal.
inches wide, you know, whatever.
And that same morning, I saw a 3-year-old that I probably would have liked to have shot, just because it would have been fun to shoot a deer on Texas Public, but he didn't quite make that.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's no such thing as without a shadow of a doubt, because who really knows? But I look at that deer and say, that's a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I never actually had a shot. I didn't draw on him, but he was really callable because I grunted him in a second time, you know, so I could have shot that deer if he would have qualified.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's another thing is, like, if they're close, most of the time guys they want to be ethical and law abiding. They're not going to shoot them. And if they don't really care about the laws, then they're going to shoot it. And whether, you know, so it's kind of like, it's almost like the gun laws kind of thing. You know
it's
what I mean?
One of those things where, like, I wish that instead of a law, we were more educated as a hunting society and just strove to shoot better.
Strove. I love it. That's one of those.
Strove.
Had striven.
We desired to shoot older age class deer until we didn't.
Yeah.
And if we would self-regulate, we wouldn't have to have regulation. It would just be an education.
Yeah.
I'm all about education over regulation in all aspects of my life.
Yeah.
So, and that would be like, and that would allow for us to say, you know what, that buck right there, he's got a little weird side over here. It's got a little fork on it, and he's got a big side over here, and he's probably like a mature buck. So I'm going to go ahead and shoot him, even though, you know what, he doesn't really meet what somebody somewhere decided was.
Right. I'm just not, and I know I've voiced this, I'm not a big fan of the antler restriction thing.
Yeah.
But that being said, I think back to bringing this whole thing back around to like game wardens seeing tree stands from the road and not caring, I think the game wardens should be a little more lenient than what I've heard they've been on that rule. And I think that they should look at this and go, oh, that kid's 10. That's his first buck. Let's not write him a citation. Yeah. Or that deer, looking at the age of his, or just looking at his teeth, that deer meets what we're striving for with that rule as far as age restrictions, age goes. So I'm going to not give him a citation and say, hey, dude, try not to do that again, man. But, I understand this deer's old.
I don't know if we've talked about this in the podcast, but I know you and I have talked about it and discussed like what we thought might be some good amendments for that. Like, I would love to see a first buck, any buck tag.
Yeah, I think we did talk about it on the podcast.
For people like when you pass your hunter safety course, you get a first buck, any buck that's good for your lifetime until you kill a buck, or maybe first 5 years, whatever, where you can shoot whatever you want to.
Yeah.
And then also, there should be a clause where it's like 13 inches, or you pull a tooth, get it sent in, get it signed off by a game warden. If it doesn't qualify as 3.5 years old or older, then you get a citation. But it's up to you to take that risk.
Right.
Put it in the hunter's hands and not just the law's hands.
Yeah. So, I'm with you on that. It's good. It's good thoughts. Anyway, this is probably boring to some people, but we'll move on a little bit. Another, like, to issues that I see, at least, that we have struggled with.
Are we done raging on the department?
Well, not necessarily.
Okay.
Not necessarily. This is not necessarily a department thing. I mean, I guess technically it could be, but this is just a habitat thing, or cause of where we live. But like high stem counts make it tough on us to observe deer, and not being able to observe many deer throughout a season just doesn't quite educate you to how they behave and what you should do. Right. I mean, I think you said this recently talking to somebody, but hunting more open country last year, you learned more in 10 days of hunting than you have in several years, just because you were able to observe deer doing deer things. And I think like when you can't see 60 yards in some cases, or 100 yards, it makes it real tough. And especially like if you can see 100, 150 yards in one or two directions, kind of, you may have a buck come through November and you see him for all of 10 seconds, and that just doesn't show you a whole lot as to where he's going or what he's doing. So
for sure. And it's kind of funny, like if you go hunt deer in more open country, they see deer all the time and like get interested and go see the other deer and stuff. And I guess our deer do it too, because like sometimes you'll see a buck with a group of does and the next day you don't see him with him or whatever. But I've been in the stand a few times when like you've got some deer on the right, and then suddenly a deer comes up from a different direction, and then they look at each other and get kind of wigged out because they surprise each other, and it's like those deer aren't used to seeing other deer. It's a big deal when they do see another deer. They try to figure it all out and think about it, and I guess there's advantages to it. I can't really think of them, but like it's pretty apparent that it's pretty thick around here, and it goes back to the whole antler restriction thing and just deer population density. It's like, man, if you don't get to see very many deer, you're really going to want to shoot whatever you can see. And then whenever you don't have that option, it kind of stinks.
Yeah. I think it allows properties to hold more hunters.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that's an advantage.
Sure.
Because we have a ton of hunters, and that's one issue is pressure, but like, I think more hunters can be on a landscape that has more timber like that. So
but that doesn't mean there's more deer. It probably means there's less deer per capita.
They're all moving to private, or whatever. But I think a prime issue or a prime example of this issue is you can watch a video from it's from our PLC series from last year, 2018 Public Land Chronicles playlist on YouTube. But like we had been stalking around the week before and lost all our grunt calls, and probably rattling horns and everything.
Yeah, that's fun.
And so the next time we hunted on pub in Texas, we were sitting in a stand and like 40 yards, we weren't able to get a shot. That's how thick it is. But at 40 yards, a deer comes down a trail and we're like, that's a good buck. And so he's like nose down in almost like a trot, you know, and we're like, it's quite hysterical what we do afterwards. But he's like coming through and we realize he's not going to come down our trail. And he's going to follow these does that had gone through 10 or 15 minutes before. And we're like, meh, 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 meh. And then I pick up my rattling horns and I start trying to give it to him at like 60 yards. And he just he has no care in the world, you know. And so we didn't even, like, I don't know if he even looked at us, but he was just so focused in on that smell. But that's kind of like a prime example of all of a sudden he shows up at 40 and at 70 he's out of our lives.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that was probably one of our better encounters of last season, and we saw that deer for 8 seconds.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. About as long as you could ride a bull.
That's right.
But, you know, in thinking about that, that piece of property in particular, like pressure was super high on that property, and several of the places we've been. I mean, we hunted another place. Like I said, we ran into some guys last year, and one guy we ran into was at like 11 a.m. He was coming in to check a camera, and he was like, "Yeah, well, Jim Bob over here hunts right here." And we like look, and like 100 yards is what he's talking about. He's not talking about like a quarter mile down.
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Yeah, and Sammy over here, you know, he hunts," and that's like one at 60 yards. There was literally like 5 guys hunting this one like little kind of funnel area, and none of them were seeing any deer. And the year before, we had noticed that there was deer in there, so that's why we were hunting there. And it just turned off, I guess, because there were so many people hunting it. So pressure was was another big factor in our season last year. But that doesn't like, I don't want to say that without saying that, especially me, I feel like made some pretty dumb decisions to hunt pressured areas because of a deer. You know what I mean?
But, I mean, outside of the pressure on that place that you're trying to hunt that deer, you made good choices. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like the fact that you hunted a place that was heavily pressured was the bad choice. But like your hunting decisions while you were in there were good. You know, you made adjustments and made moves, and the same day I killed the spike, you almost killed deer too that day.
Yeah, I should have killed.
Yeah.
That's a long story, but you can watch it. I heard deer coming and I thought it was squirrels, so that's cool. Usually it's the opposite, you know. But yeah, another, you know, and I think a part of this, the pressure that we've seen, the increased pressure, is, you know, I don't know, maybe this isn't it, but on a lot of properties, at least in East Texas, the NWTF, National Wild Turkey Federation, is doing a bunch of habitat projects, which is great. I love, like, I want more turkeys around, right? But they're doing them on some of these public properties in the North and East Texas area, because it's like, it's, you know, it's where they have no turkeys. It's like their main focus across the nation is like this area that should have turkeys and doesn't, and that's East Texas, North and East Texas. So these like they're coming in and like doing these big habitat manipulation projects, and I'll be honest with you, they're like, some of the ones that we've walked across and seen are like void of deer. I mean, there's no deer sign there, and like we've talked to people that we've met and as well, and just they're like, yeah, the deer don't really use that stuff, because it's just they're clearing it out to keep predators from from eating turkeys from behind every tree, right? And creating grasslands. And sometimes what comes in after they clear stuff is not like beautiful switchgrass.
Yeah,
you know,
forbs are good for deer until they're not.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, I ain't never seen a deer eat goat weed.
No.
You know, what we call goat weeds.
I'm pretty sure they don't.
Yeah, and it don't happen. It's good for doves,
right?
And all that, but...
And really only good for doves if it's shredded, because like
true.
If they have to land in the middle of a bunch of goat weeds, they're going to get eaten by a bobcat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's... they don't put off seeds very great whenever they're not shredded.
Yeah,
that's a good point. But, yeah, I don't know. But something else we've noticed about those improvements, habitat improvements, is that there is hog sign there.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, not only are we doing something that seems to be detrimental to the deer, but we are also creating habitat that still works for an invasive. So what could we be doing about that instead?
Right.
and I'm not discrediting anyone at any organization or any biologist who's done research on things, but that's just what I observe as a hunter, right? And that's got to mean something.
Yeah, and I think, to me, you have to think about this. Like, there's guys out there that are hardcore turkey hunters, and that's what they want to do. That's all they care about, and so this is great for them, right? Mm-hmm. But I just look at it from an economic. If you want to talk about public lands that are owned by taxpayers or whatever, then you have to look at the greater economic impact a lot of times, right?
Yeah,
that's what makes sense, and that's what they do most of the time. So I look at it like they're not really taking, like, the NWTF is able to raise funds to do this project work, and so I feel like the department's just going, okay, they want to do it, they're going to pay for it, then that's great. We'll let them do it, and it sounds like a good plan.
It's a feel-good story, too.
It is, yeah, for sure. It's like a good conservation story.
Yeah.
But, like, when we're taking out hundreds of acres at a time of pretty good whitetail habitat and turning it into kind of a desolate country for a couple of years at least, then that's causing people to have to hunt closer to each other on public lands because there's less habitat that deer are going to use, and therefore their experience is declining, and then therefore they start getting out of this public land game, and next thing you know, like, how are we earning funds? Especially if, like, creating this habitat, and there's still not, like, huntable or open seasons, huntable populations of turkeys or open seasons. Well, there could have been lots of whitetails killed, which is a lot more meat than a turkey, and just more justifiable for guys who are hunting public. There's a lot of guys that are hunting public that are interested in meat, right?
Yeah.
They're not necessarily interested in the trophy side of things. I mean, how many people have we met on public lands that are like, yeah, I shot a doe. Well, you ain't shooting a doe for they're shooting it because they like backstraps. You know what I mean? And that's great. But when you're trying to, like, substitute that for a couple of turkey breasts and some legs, it just don't add up the same. And not to mention, it's just not the same. Like, people love their deer season in Texas. You know what I mean? So I just kind of worry about the economic impacts of trying to make all these properties in North and East Texas a turkey factory.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know, like, maybe they haven't thought about it, and that's okay. I mean, if I had to work as much as they do and be only paid as much as they do, I probably wouldn't think about it in my off time either.
Get raged by every podcast out there. These guys are complaining again.
Yeah, the emails, from every Joe that thinks they know biology or whatever. But and so that's just me thinking, giving my 2 cents about the whole thing. And like I said, they may not have even thought about it, or they may have, and they may know it better than I do. So, but these are just kind of the issues we've seen. And, back to kind of that squeezing people down and having a lot of pressure. And I don't know if that may be not a good way to say it, but just we saw where we hunted last year increased pressure as opposed to the year before.
Yeah.
And that may just be the ebb and flow of public lands. And you seem to think that kind of, right? But
I think that it's more like pull-in based than it is like general WMA based. You know what I'm saying? Or like this place, for some reason this year, like this little spot that you park at gets more people at it.
Yeah.
That year. Right. And then the next year it might be less.
Like a particular WMA doesn't ebb and flow as much as like the spots on a WMA.
But it could be. It's just, it's hard to really guess that. But it's just kind of, that's what it seems to me, at least. And it's probably of our own doing. I mean, we are doing a podcast that talks a lot about Texas public land hunting and encourages people to go hunting. So it makes sense. And then that's kind of the trend that, like, a lot of hunting media is going anyways. People are getting away from, like, managing, their 600 acres for 200-inch deer, and they're going a lot more for experience, which is good. I like that. But
private land management is a cool experience too.
It
is. If you like that, don't think that you have to go do the public thing because it's cool.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Exactly. If I had 600 acres of land, I may or may not be hunting public land.
I guarantee you, I ain't hunting public land.
At least not here, right?
Right. Yeah.
Anyways, who knows what's causing it? But I would like to think that maybe next year we won't see that as much on some places, and then other places there will be more.
Yeah.
It's just, who knows? Maybe last year we had a rough October and people didn't kill deer in October, so there's a lot more people in the woods in November just because you only get one buck tag. So they hadn't filled it yet.
Well, even on a more lengthy time scale, I guess you could say, like, who knows if the year before everybody had a rough season and was like, man, we got to try somewhere else. And then they end up in a spot that we were at, or whatever. And
they shoot a pig and like, man, I'm going back here every time.
Yeah, I hope
not.
I hope not. Hopefully they didn't. The places we were at got enough pressure last year that the deer wised up and they go back to where they came from, and then we end up being able to hunt that place again without people. But if it has the people, if some of these places have the people that we encountered this past year, I'm not going to probably pull quite the same hunting scheme as this year. And one place in particular that I think about is like that kept me coming back and I guess making the bad decision of hunting amongst a bunch of people in high pressure was a buck named Teenager. And
could write a book titled that.
A buck named Teenager. That dude has been haunting me for years now. And we've been able to follow him for 3 sets of antlers, basically, now. And I don't know, he may have gotten shot this year, but there was a lot of pressure where we were hunting him at this year. Was one of the places we experienced a lot of pressure. And so, but I stayed with it for a while, for the most part, hunted there quite a bit, and I felt like my hunting experience really declined late in the year. And I don't know, like the last 2 years, my late season experience there has been pretty tough, and I don't know if it's like just an overall the properties are worn out from people for a whole season, if I'm wearing them out personally, or if it's just like once it kind of hits that late season, things change enough that I'm not adjusting correctly. And we're talking late season as in like December 15th and on kind of thing, for the last month there. So, I feel like my goals with Teenager next year are basically, we haven't put any trail cameras out yet. By last year, by this time, we might have. I don't know. But we'll probably, when I get back from my trip and Casey gets back from his trip, we'll probably entertain getting some cameras out, because I think you're going to start being able to tell what's a legal buck at that moment or at that time.
I saw a buck the other night in the headlights, and that was on probably May 26th, who had brow tines, and you could see his first branch.
Saw one hitting the ditch on the way to the lodge the other night. Same thing.
I was surprised. Yeah. I thought it was. I was thinking it was like mid-June before you could see that in the past, but maybe I was just off, or that buck might have done something sooner. But I mean, they're going to have identifiable antlers pretty quick.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
I think that. Go along with your Teenager stuff.
Okay.
Sorry, I don't want to get too far off track.
Well, it's simple basically. It boils down to put trail cameras in the woods in about mid-July, or maybe late July, and then go check them. We'll probably, knowing us, check them once before then, but go check cameras right around the first of the season. And if we're picking up Teenager, I'll probably be in there quite a bit. If we're not, I may kind of just, if we haven't picked them up at all, I'll probably, I may still hunt in there, but I may hunt somewhere else. I'm not opposed to it at all. And then basically check once or twice in the month of October and November. And if we don't pick them up or pick up any other reason to hunt in there, then I probably won't spend a ton of time in there, especially if there's pressure. But if we can pick them up on cameras, then my goal is to find oaks that he's going to be at and hunt oaks in October. Yeah. Before too many, and rightfully so. November is bad to the bone in all states. You know what I mean? And so people are going to be also hunting November.
I wish if I can do it more spread out. Dadgummit.
I know. I know. So, but yeah. And honestly, where I'd like to hunt him, or I think there's going to be some good oaks putting off this year, hunts well on a north wind. And I think I can hunt well on a north wind there. And so a good cold front in October is kind of when I want to be there. So if I pick them up, that's the plan, man. And if I don't, then I'm gonna go with the flow. We're gonna have several cameras out, and we're gonna just check. And when we find a good buck using an area, that's where I want to be, man. Or I want to find the oaks that he's gonna be in October. My goal is not necessarily to hunt or kill a deer or to kill a deer in October because I love hunting late season. And when I say late December on,
Yeah.
like I just love that time of year because not a whole lot else is going on and it's still like 50 or 60 here, so it's fun. And it's cold and everything. Ticks are gone, mosquitoes, whatever.
Maybe mosquitoes are gone.
Maybe, yeah, depending on the day.
Yeah.
But that's just one of those things about hunting early that is going to stink is the heat and the bugs. So I don't love it, but
man, there's less pressure.
There is
that time of year.
Yep.
And I think that we shouldn't. At least for me, I don't want to put as much emphasis on trail cameras this year. I'm like in the past, we've done so many sweated out, nasty days, hanging trail cameras everywhere to get half of them stolen kind of days, and I think we did better last year at it still, but I still think that we might have spent a little bit too much time trying to preseason it out there.
Yeah.
When honestly, put cameras out, let them soak, and just go pull them, and stop jacking around too much in there. It's a good opportunity for other people to see you in there to increase pressure on a place, and it's a good opportunity for you to booger deer. So just wait, and then.
All right. So with that in mind, are you like, how do you plan to hunt? So are you just going to go Babylon until you feel like it's not happening there anymore? Or are you going to like how do you plan to hunt? Where do you plan to hunt without much reconnaissance?
I don't feel like Babylon is a great early season spot. I feel deer go through there some, yeah, but it seems to really pick up late October to December 1st, and I don't really know for sure right now on the early season stuff, but I think that it's kind of more of let those trail cameras do some soaking and put them in good spots. And if you pick up a buck that is kind of a resident there, then you have an opportunity to go in there and try to find him early season and shoot him. Whereas, like, honestly, man, like trying to go out on October 3rd and just go in somewhere hoping a deer walks by, it kind of stinks.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's a good chance you ain't going to see nothing.
Last year.
Yeah, we did. It got mosquitoed up.
Outrageous. I took a picture of your hat, and there had to have been 15 on it. And like you had just swatted it. You know what I mean? Like, it was outrageous. I pretty much hid inside my clothes all evening.
You did. It was bad. And we sweated a lot.
Yeah, and it's all no deer. And I mean, I'm with you, dude. Like, and that was a place with a ton of oak trees. There was tons of squirrels in there. So, they were in there eating acorns, and that the deer should have been in there, but they weren't for whatever reason, and probably because there's oaks everywhere. But
yeah,
like I'm with you, man. Like if you don't have a real good inkling about someplace and know that there's nobody going in there, it's hard to just go in and hunt in October without like knowing a buck's in there.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
I think we definitely made that mistake last year, and another mistake that I felt like we made, and that like I will find a way this year to be in the woods on November 14th through the 17th in Texas. You know what I mean?
That's the time.
That was the days. And I remember your dad saying last year, because they live around a pretty nice resident population of deer. And he was saying those days was like,
that's when it was going down.
The third week of November was when it happens. He said about November. I don't remember. It's like about November 17th. They're going to be going everywhere down here. And we pulled a couple of trail cameras last year that were just. We were like, why were we not here during one of those 3 or 4 days? Like,
well, it's because we're running around being crazy.
We were, man. We were doing dumb things.
I don't know, and that's kind of like the catch-22 of like doing a bunch of scouting and figuring out, finding the new places. You end up neglecting places that you shouldn't because you're trying to like scheme it in your head, and you come up with this big, fanciful idea what's going to work well, and you don't go see deer, and then they're where you knew they were originally. You know, but,
they are where we knew they were.
Man, what a novel statement, right? I don't know. I tell you what, though, man, I shot a deer in public last year. That was a win for me, right? It was a baby, but he was tasty, and we both have eaten him. I want to shoot 2 deer on Texas public next year. That's something I want to do, and that can be 2 does.
Yeah.
It can be 2 does, yes. It physically could be 2 does as well. But I would be fine with that. I'd love to shoot a buck, a good buck, a big buck, a giant buck. But, I think that a mistake I made last year was like, you can go too far down the road of enjoying the hunt, if that makes sense. And sometimes part of making it a hunt is actually shooting something. I kind of did a lot of like woods watching last year, and didn't take shots sometimes when maybe I should have. And, the whole like, oh, I'm not going to shoot this doe even though I need meat because I don't want to booger this place because a buck might come through here.
Not doing that this year?
I don't think so. I don't know. It depends on what.
Babylon?
I don't know, maybe. I don't know.
Awesome.
Shooting stuff is fun.
Yeah, it is.
And I didn't get to do very much of it last year. And I don't know. It just, I feel like that would increase my enjoyment, is being able to do that and not have the expectations of, well, I'm going to deprive myself of this, so maybe I can have something else,
See, that's what, to me, that's like, that would be, I don't know. It's so hard when you think about messing a place up, shooting a doe when you're hunting a buck in there, right? But like that would be, what would be awesome is if we could find a place next year where we're like, man, there's not a shooter buck in here, but there's a bunch of does. Let's just go over there on some random afternoon and hunt them, moving to food or whatever, and smoke some does. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That would be fun, and so you don't have to worry about it so much. So like finding those spots, I think would be kind of cool. Maybe even setting ourselves up to have like 2 cameras that we think might be that particular situation.
Yeah,
you never know. You might find the buck mecca.
That's the thing too. Is we've got a bunch of does pattern in here. Let's go in here in cold front and like, oh, look who showed up. You know what I mean? Like I'm going to shoot him instead.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I think that just
there's your mystique right there, right?
Ooh, that's it. That's right. Find the does, find the bucks. Man, it's like, is that a new concept?
You would think otherwise with all the buck bedding talk we've heard the last several years.
Yeah.
But, I think for me, if I don't get it done in October on some oak trees, or if I don't get it done November 14th to the 17th, and these are possibilities for me because I'm going to have tags out of state and stuff like that. So balancing all this together and being able to hunt the right dates in the right states and everything is going to be a for sure clown show probably next year. But if I don't, and I'm looking at like that late season period in Texas, December 15th and on, I think, one thing that I'm going to do is focus heavily on finding areas with lack of pressure. Because I can remember the last day of last season was, speaking of clown shows, straight up, like how many miles did we walk with stands on our back trying, and we were just like, every 150 yards we'd run into a stand or a boot track or something, and we're like, oh, well, I guess let's go over here. You see this little draw over here. Maybe we can set up over here. And literally we just walked around until it was like too late to hang a stand in the afternoon, and we were like, you know what? If we hang a stand right now, we're hunting for an hour. And I mean, it was the first time that I've ever seen you like give up on a spot, on just hunting basically, you know? Like we tried to hunt even from the ground with like an hour left, and we were like, you know what? We can't even get a shot if a deer comes in at 20. This is like hysterically stupid. And so we just gave up and went home, because we thought, well, we can get home and cook dinner or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I think my goal there at the end of the year is to try to, or not my goal, but what I'm going to be focused on if I get to that point is finding some spot, and that may be just go in 2 miles, set yourself up with enough time in the afternoon or whatever in the morning, go in 2 miles wherever, or, a long ways in, a mile plus, and find deer that haven't been hunted hardly at all, and I think that's the way we're going to have to do it late in the season, where earlier we can hunt places a half mile, 3/4 mile, under a mile, whatever, without having to mess with, too many messed up deer. So
yeah, I think that's something else I'd like to do, man, is just for that adventure and hunt enjoyment aspect, just go and find someplace wild and hunt. And it's something we talk about doing a lot in all aspects of our hunting life. But I get kind of, even though I love seeing deer and like we've got these spots that are really good, I get kind of worn out just going and sitting in the stand and knowing that, okay, it's going to be 3 hours before I see something, right? And when you can get up, cover some ground, go see new country, feel like you're way back in somewhere, like you feel like you always got a shot.
Yeah.
It's kind of like fishing a lake that's known for big bass. Like, you feel like you always got a shot, right?
That's right.
And it's good to feel like you're in the game. And I don't know, that's just kind of back to that, like why I originally started hunting public land. Well, not the only reason, but one of the reasons was because it was fun to get out there and kind of do kind of crazy stuff, you know, and get back in to places that people don't see very often.
Yeah.
Not because you're like, this is where the deer are going to be, but because it's neat back there. You
Yeah.
feel like you're pretty far away from
People,
stuff.
yeah.
Like you can get to a point where you may not be able to hear a highway. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah. So there's some gear that we're looking at that we might need this year to kind of achieve some of these things. For me, you know, like you carry that Sitka Flash 20 bag. Man, that thing, like, it's built as like a day pack for mountain hunting, right? But the thing is like been pretty clutch for deer hunting.
It's nice.
Thinking about it, man.
It's really roomy, and
Carry a elk quarter in there, right?
carry an elk quarter, maybe a whole Texas deer, just field dressed. Put the whole thing in there. I don't know, but it's nice. It's got like buckles and straps on the outside you can put stand on, but you end up with the weight in a weird spot when you do that, but it functions. So it's nice for that. I do think that we're going to be getting some packs for Western hunting this year, and I'm kind of wondering how that's going to function for what we're talking about, because if we get packs that have like meat shelves, load shelves in them, then you can use it for a deer stand too. And then you got the stand close to your back in a good spot for the weight, and then you've got your, you know, the rest of your clothes and stuff in your pack that straps to the frame and kind of snugs your deer stand in between it. Kind of a neat deal.
Yeah, good concept there.
We also have thought about going standless in general too on some of these trips. I mean, we do a decent amount of stuff from the ground if we go like to the Midwest or whatever. And there's some stuff that we can probably take and use around here in Texas from that. But we've also talked about trying to do, I know it's kind of like all the rage, and it's not great for every situation, but a saddle could be nice on some of these like 2 mile in excursions where you go from carrying a 12-pound stand to wearing a 2-pound harness that you probably are already wearing anyways if you're a tree stand hunter. I guess it just kind of makes sense. So we might explore some of those options too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I definitely would like to explore lightening up my setup a little bit.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like you said, with a good frame pack, like carrying stand and sticks on that frame pack is like that's going to change the game, you know. And that's whereas like used to like be like a pretty uncomfortable bag and then throw the stand and the straps on top of that with these little tiny straps that just wear your arms out, you know. So good thing.
Looking like a Ninja Turtle out there running around in the woods.
Straight up.
Golly.
So, the stands and the sticks are definitely some things that we're looking at possibly upgrading. We also bought another GoPro to help us out.
We did. It's just going to make it easier for us to kind of split up and hunt.
Jared Mills hooked us up.
Yeah, I bro Jared Mills. He's been on the podcast a couple times. Always good info.
Yes. Monster killer, monster butt killer.
Real, dude, that was the biggest improvement on the whole season. We got the big buck killing GoPro.
Yeah.
It's going to have good
luck
mojo.
Charm. Yeah, dude. There might even be some footage of a big buck being killed on it. Please, Jared, put that SD card in there.
Yeah. But no, that'll just make it better and easier for us to do a better job documenting stuff. It's not going to actually, it might in some way make us better hunters, but it means that a guy doesn't have to carry 2 camera arms if he wants a second angle and he's solo hunting, which
5-pound cameras.
Silly.
Yeah, but, it's definitely nice, and the GoPros are getting pretty awesome.
Yeah,
for sure.
They're like for real cameras nowadays.
Yeah, they're pretty awesome. So we definitely used the GoPro that we had last year a lot, and it's nice to have an extra. So with all this kind of talked about, and you kind of mentioned your goal this earlier, but shooting 2 deer on public. What about bucks? Like, what are you looking at? What's going to keep you from pulling the trigger, or what's going to make you pull the trigger?
I think that I need to honestly be a touch less selfish about killing a big buck in Texas. I think that if I have an opportunity at a decent buck that would make me happy to shoot, I need to go ahead and shoot it, and then we will just work on getting you a big buck.
Dude, I'm going to have some good tags this year. You ain't got to worry about me.
I am too, though. But that's what, like why hold off, man? I just want to shoot stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And that might sound crude if you just took that little excerpt from the podcast, but honestly, I was stoked to kill a spike last year. Why would I not be stoked to kill a 3-year-old this year that's, a good-looking buck? I don't know.
So you're saying if he's legal, you're going to shoot him?
Not a little pencily little baby that just happens to be 13, but, like a deer, it's like, oh, that's a good-looking buck. Mm-hmm. I'll probably shoot him and be excited about it.
Cool.
That's not to say that I'm not going to try to target some of the bigger bucks that we've got on camera.
What if you got a couple of big ones in an area and it's October 25th and a 3-year-old, one of those good-looking bucks that you're talking about comes in? I mean, that's going to be a tough call.
It's going to be tough, but I got out-of-state tags to fill too, you know, and it's like if I can fill a tag or two here, that leaves me just a little bit less pressure around here. Like personal pressure to get that done, so I can kind of concentrate on some of the out-of-state stuff.
Yeah,
it's not like your season isn't ending. Like when I was younger, if I shot a deer, my season was over because I didn't have the resources or the knowledge to go elsewhere to go hunt, and now I do. And it's like, why not shoot something?
Yeah, with the tags that I'm going to have, the decisions are going to be so week to week based, I think, and depending on where I've shot one or what I've got located or whatever. But I do feel like it's going to be hard for me to shoot in Texas anything that's not pretty good before that November 14th to 17th window. Yeah, just because of what we saw last year on some cameras.
Yeah, I could see that for sure.
But if it's like November 12th. And one comes through that's kind of good buck, but not like as big as some of the other ones we have, and I still haven't filled any tags in any other states, it might be a different story. You know what I mean? But I don't know. I mean, you can hunt pretty late in Texas, and so I kind of would almost like, I don't know. I don't know. Who knows what's going to happen? But I almost would rather have that chance at the November 14th to 17th window in Texas and eat a tag at the end of the year than shoot kind of a pencil horn before the 14th to 17th. I don't know. So that's just kind of, we'll have to see week to week.
It's also June we're talking about this.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So
I know we should be talking about trout fishing because that's what I'm going to be doing here for like a month.
Well, it's saying come September, the hype of the season coming up might change and be like, dude, I'm holding out for 150. I think it's good to talk about it now. That way you can go back and look at your more realistic self that was a few months behind.
Yeah, exactly.
Back, I'm like, okay, I'm probably right. Back when I was in a sane state of mind, I should probably do what I was saying.
Back before pre-rut.
Yeah, exactly.
So as far as preparations go to achieve these goals, anything in particular jump out at you?
Well, I have to buy more arrows because I used a lot of them last year. That doesn't mean I killed that much, but I killed a few things.
You're going to use one in September, so you better make sure you have a few.
That's right. But I don't know. I mean, not minus what we already talked about, a little bit of gear stuff we're going to add. Not really. Just I think working on myself mentally more probably be the bigger thing. Being more open-minded, being more willing to differentiate from the plan, and
any map scouting or anything.
There'll be a little bit of that. A little bit of looking at some new properties too, because I feel like also if you go to a new property, you lose some of that. Like, man, I need to go kill one of those big bucks in there. It's pretty cool to go to a new place on the third day of hunting that area. You kill a 3-year-old, and it's like, all right, I feel pretty good about it. Yeah. But it's kind of like whenever it's a place you've hunted for a long time, you're like, man, I've been hunting this place since before this deer was born, and now I'm going to shoot him, you know what I mean, or whatever. I don't know. Anyways, you kind of know what I'm saying.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think I need to just prepare myself mentally to kind of really take in the season and know, I want to do in the deer season what it takes for me to look back on February 1st and say, you know what, that was pretty good. I don't want to be like, man, look at these daggum tags I got right here.
Yeah. I hear you. I mean, that's where I'm at pretty much. I need that mental preparation. I need the mental preparation just to not get down about things. And I think I've been working on that, just being around you and learning how to do that. I think I've gotten better over the last few years, and hopefully I'll continue to keep getting better.
Yeah.
But
something that we both are pretty bad about is once it starts getting to that December 15th range or whatever, just doing the same thing over and over again, hoping it works. Because we get all like creative earlier in the season, and then like we get burned by our creativity a couple times.
Well,
like, okay, I'm just gonna go sit.
Yeah, and you start start out with like 8 spots, and then all of a sudden like 4 of them,
Jimmy John and Billy Don.
Everybody else thought that spot was good too, and now you got 4 spots. Oh well, we have this wind, and technically only 1 or 2 spots works with this wind, and now it's like I got hardly anywhere to go. So, I mean, that's when maybe we just go, okay, we're going way back. We're gonna do something new. Mm-hmm. So, and as far as like preparation for me, that mental side of things for sure. But then I got a new bow, new to me, but 2011 Matthews.
Nice.
So I can't even remember what it's called, but I shot it a few times and it's good. But
ZXT.
I think it's helium. Yeah. Anyway, I need to get it dialed in, just make sure I'm good to go and shoot a bunch and kind of get the motion down with the new bow and everything. And other than that, I think I'm just ready already. But we got a lot of fishing and stuff ahead. And speaking of that, we just put out the state record video from the state record fish you caught. So that's on YouTube. You guys have been kind to comment on that, so we appreciate that.
Yep. Go check that out. And also, if you are in Texas or anywhere else and you enjoy this podcast, be sure and leave us a review on iTunes because we really appreciate that. It helps us out a ton. And if there are some things that we didn't cover or we didn't think about or some problems that you encounter that we may or may not know about or may or may not realize that we have, leave that in the comments too. That way we kind of can be enlightened on that thing, because it's pretty easy as a hunter to get kind of tunnel vision and kind of just think about what you've got going on. Yeah. And maybe some of the things that we think are problems you think are solutions, or vice versa. So let us know what you think. Yeah, for sure. And you can always reach out through our website, theelementwild.com, and send us emails there. We've got an email form, so feel free to do that, man. Like you said, the iTunes reviews are great. And if you like if you're from Texas or you're interested in this Texas thing, and a lot of you probably aren't, because I know where a lot of you are from, but but I know we have lots of Texas listeners too. And if that's something that is exciting for you, there's definitely, you can scroll back through these podcasts on our channel here and find several that discuss that kind of thing. And throughout the season, we talk about our hardships. So if you're looking through November, October, December, that kind of thing, you can find them. But in particular, E95, episode 95 discussed some of the hardships that we encountered last season with just having people run into us on public that should have known we were there, and just different situations. I know E88, episode 88 was like one of my favorites. We talked about the art of the draw, which is definitely a big thing across the board in whitetail. But in Texas, you need the deer to be as not jumpy as possible, because they're agile and quick and little, and the art of the draw can help you through that. But I think we might have even talked about some Texas stuff there. So anyway, those are a couple episodes. Feel free to go back and check out if you haven't listened to them. We had a good time, and I think we were cooking in the rain that evening on the art of the draw. Never a bad thing. Yeah, cooking some stuff, probably elk or something. But anyway, I hope you guys have a great weekend. Thanks for listening to this thing and for checking out all that we're doing. It means a lot to us. The podcast has been doing really great, and that's just because you guys are real supportive, spreading the good news, and probably as fired up about whitetail in June as we are. So anyway, I hope you guys get out and get in the outdoors, and remember, this is your element. Live in it.
The new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook Wild Game Recipes for the Grill, Smoker, Campfire, and Camp Stove is out on April 24th and is available for pre-order now. Here is your book for everything that's best cooked or eaten outside. From grilling to open fire cooking to Dutch ovens to smokers to barbecue to backpacking meals to how to pull off the perfect fish fry, with pit stops along the way for lessons about Ice Age cooking methods and the best 5 ways to construct a cooking fire you can be proud of. And of course, we're focusing on wild game and fish here with over 100 recipes, including stuffed venison burgers 3 ways, wild duck with ahi verde sauce, a jerky made with cola, a gin and tonic made with fire-charred lemons, and grilled frog legs made with a sticky sweet sauce. This ain't your normal cookbook, so be prepared to be surprised. Pre-order your copy now. For more info, visit themeateater.com.